Taurus, Sun, Moon and Rising, your reading for the week ahead. Lots here about community. We have the Three of Cups, which indicates that. Obviously, Taurus's ruling planet is Venus. Venus, the planet of beauty. So there being a lot of beauty found within relationships, the support that relationships bring, feeling ultimately a love for our friends, for our family, chosen or otherwise, our companions, really relishing in those kind of heart-led connections this week. It's going to be really, really essential. Probably a week where you'll find that the support and comfort and reassurance of friends is vital. It looks a relatively challenging week otherwise, nothing untoward, nothing bad. But it's really going to highlight and emphasize actually how vital those people that are around us, that believe in us, that can cheerlead in us are. So really, really bring a focus this week on all of your friendships, all of your familial relationships, potentially your work relationships too, but that feels quite tertiary. But what are you doing to cultivate those relationships? Are there lots of reading messages that are left unread? Are there emails that you're meant to be getting back to? Are there letters you're meant to be writing? Are there people that you're meant to pop in and see? Really, really prioritize that this week. It's going to be really essential. This sense of camaraderie, this sense of a collective, is really going to safeguard us against, or safeguard you against any frustrations of what's happening in a kind of wider sense. So again, you might find that people are calling upon you for comfort, for reassurance as well. So we might be giving that as much as receiving that. Again, just making that a number one priority. Sometimes we can get caught up in the maelstrom of everyday life, other demands that we have, house stuff, work stuff. And sometimes our friendships can kind of slip down on the bottom of the pile. So yeah, a really, really good time to just check in with everybody, those friends that you haven't heard from a while, or those that you know that are going through a slightly challenging and difficult time. Now is the time to just check in, saying, hey, checking in, hope you're all right, sending lots of love, and that's kind of enough. But yeah, if your friendships or your relationships have been a bit neglected, that may kind of come up into the forefront, into sharp relief, and think, okay, I probably need to cultivate this a little bit more. You know, there's that old metaphor, isn't there? That commonplace metaphor of friendships are a bit like plants. If we don't power them, if we don't water them, they don't bloom. So allowing that to slightly ring through in your mind this week. Because you've got straight after that 2 sevens. You've got the 7 of Wands and the Chariot card. In combination, 7 is the number of endurance. It's kind of near the end, but we've still got a way to go. So you may feel the pressure this week to prove yourself. There might be demands either in work, in life. Generally, you're just feeling like, okay, really got to step up to the plate. That may feel a bit kind of slightly hot under the collar. It might not necessarily feel the most pleasurable of experiences. So again, it's a question to ask yourself, actually, do I really need to prove myself, or is this simply a story that I'm telling myself? Probably going to be quite fast-paced as well this week. Lots of different energies to contend with, some pulling you this way, some pulling you that way. So yeah, don't be surprised if you're having to kind of necessarily explain your position or explain your decision making or explain your processes, particularly to those that might be in a higher position, whether it's a boss, whether it's authorities, whether it's your local council that are sending bills or whatever it might be. But just a feeling of, actually, I'm being slightly placed under the spotlight in some way or another, whether that is kind of work, through relationships, or kind of systems in larger scale. It may be all of them, as you find. Again, just a reminder, being Taurus, that sometimes this Seven of Wands, this need to stand your ground and prove your position might come quite naturally to you. Some ways that can be really helpful. In some ways, just be mindful. Are we jumping to conclusions, or are we feeling a little bit, in a certain sense, threatened unnecessarily? Sometimes if people question us or question our method or question our belief system, it can sometimes feel like a bit of a personal attack maybe, or feeling like they're trying to trip us up. Just check in with yourself. Are they actually, or is that my perception of this? Because there may be just times that your back gets put up a little bit too quickly, a little bit unnecessarily. Also a sense, we have the Well here, which is a major arcana that Matt Hughes, the designer of this deck, has included. And for me, the Well is always about reaching down, digging down, particularly in an internal sense, having to kind of look at some of the darker recesses of ourselves. And that might be at times a little bit challenging, a bit uncomfortable in a certain way. Some soul searching may be required this week. And again, that might bring up things that aren't necessarily comfortable to sit with, but may very well be necessary. I wouldn't be surprised if there are things that you had assumed that are dead and buried, that had been kind of brought to completion, kind of resurface themselves, and again kind of stir up some feelings that might be slightly uncomfortable to do with. But again, remember that theme around community, friendships, familial relationships, those people that you can call on for support. Really kind of a problem shared is a problem halved, and that will be a really good mantra for you this week, Taurus. It's not a feeling of, I have to do it all on my own, I've got to prove myself. It's like, I can't rely on anybody but myself. That method of thinking, that line of thinking is only going to exacerbate this Nine of Swords energy. So it's a real reminder of, okay, who's the person that I can kind of get some really good advice on, some really good insights to. Maybe it's the time for a reading, a longer reading, but anything that is going to help you put things into perspective. It's not necessarily a bad week by any means, but because of, particularly with the Chariot in the middle, when we are caught up in a fervour of activity, or there's lots of things going on, we don't necessarily always have the state of mind to see things kind of as clearly as we need to, or we start seeing things in very binary terms, very black and white terms. And sometimes that has a benefit, but this kind of indicates, particularly with the Seven of Wands and the Chariot card, that actually is that always the right path. So probably not a big time, a right time to be making big decisions, or certainly decisions that are irrevocable. Anything that can be delayed till next week or a couple of weeks' time, and then you kind of make. This is particularly true if you're incredibly busy at the moment, which you probably are. But if there's a lot going on, where you can just say, actually, can I have a little bit of time to think on this? Could I just have I don't want to reach a decision quite here, quite now. What's the latest deadline? Because that sense of pressure, that sense of gosh, I've got to is only going to exacerbate the situation and the issue. So yeah, it's going to be difficult for you in some ways to see the wood for the trees. But out of all of this, what is really going to be highlighted, as the cards keep indicating and my guides keep talking about, is this sense of community, this sense of solidarity. So really lean into that. If you find yourself slipping into any sense of isolation, it's not necessarily the right way to go. As much as you may want to kind of just go to bed, chill out, kind of relax, not that rest is necessarily counterindicatory here, but by far the most beneficial thing to do is just to get a friend round, watch a show together, a film together, whatever it might be, but just bring yourself into company. this is the kind of main thrust of the reading. So I hope that helps. Have a wonderful week and see you again soon. Bye for now.